Right, we're going to go to WCW again, and Rob Ross. We got a few questions about this. He would love to know your thoughts on the Revolution and how the Revolution came about.
When I had gotten there, and it became apparent to me that the Flair thing was not going to be given the time it should have been given. The same thing I did in ECW. Every great promotion I've grown up watching had that heel stable that ran roughshod, and House of Humperdinck, later the Four Horsemen, and the Valiant Brothers, and all these little blocks of things that were given this point of time. That once you saw that entity involved in an angle, you're like, oh shit, the Horsemen are here, or oh shit, the House of Humperdinck's here. So I thought in ECW we needed a heel stable and be contributory to the company and the promotion, and it worked. So when we got there, and it became apparent to me that the Flair thing was not going to be given its time, that they kept kicking around this idea of doing a new Four Horsemen. I hate doing new anything because that's already been done to perfection. Anytime you say Four Horsemen, the fans immediately think you can say new Four Horsemen 2, Four Horsemen Redux, whatever. The fans go right back to Flair, Arn, Tully, and JJ and those guys. This was a chance now. There's Chris and Ben, Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko. We can't do 3 because we did that in the last one. We have to do 4 or a different number. 2 can't really be a stable. So like I started running these ideas to my head, and then I thought with Perry. Perry was always an impressive in-ring performer to me, and we always got along fantastic. So I thought, let's put these 4 guys together. As we come up, we can do the same thing as I did with Flair in ECW, elevate me as a heel by, I thought at the time, turning on Flair. And then here in WCW, we will look right into the camera and say, we're better than the Four Horsemen. They went with the idea to a certain point. There was 2 incidences that happened. The first one was in the Palace Hills, Auburn Palace, they call it Palace Hills Arena, where WrestleMania 3 was. They sent us to the ring. We were threatening to burn an American flag, which you couldn't do today after 9/11. And they sent Hacksaw Jim Duggan down. I'd known Jim for years and certainly trusted him with the 2x4. So we had obviously choreographed. Perry would feed him first, take the shot. I'd feed him second, take the shot. He'd go through us. We'd cut him down, and then Brett would come out and make the save. As he's running to the ring, it's sometimes like I wear reading glasses, and sometimes again the different colors and stuff, lighting and things in the building. Sometimes things are hard to see for me. And as he's running to the ring, I'm thinking something looks weird. Like what? And I'm like squinting to try to see him. So Perry, he gets up on the apron, he hits Perry, and as he's running, what looks odd to me is the board's going like this, boing, boing, like rubber. And I'm thinking, like, is this an optical illusion? Like, what am I looking at? And when I see him hit Perry, the thing bends, like sort of like a Gumby doll, and it's bent, and he's trying to straighten it out. And I yelled to him, "Sorry, Jim, I ain't feeding that." And I rolled, and then we did the rest of it, and Brett came out and made the save. The heat in the building that night, through both the beatdown of Jim and the threat of burning the American flag, was about as hot as I'd ever seen heat. And there's money that can be drawn in that, especially with the back and forth that we saw with Brett once he hit the ring. He would be our next target. When I got to the back, J.J. Dillon said to me, "That was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen." And I said, "Then you should have spoke up at the booking meeting." And because, again, this stuff's all planned, right? This is all on paper before we go out there and do it. So if you had a question or a thought about it, you should have said it then. But I know heat, and that kind of heat will draw. In fact, that night I told the guys in the dressing room, look, the idea of like heading out to a bar by ourselves or whatever probably wouldn't be a good idea, because that kind of heat will generate somebody to stab you, maybe shoot you, whatever. I said, we have to stay together at all times while we're doing this, because none of these guys had ever done that kind of heat stuff to that level. And I knew this was a different kind of heat we were seeing, and certainly a heat that would draw money. It was not long after that they decided to make the change in bookers, and Kevin Sullivan's name was being thrown around. I'd always gotten along fine with Kevin. But well, how do I say this? The heat between him and Chris, supposed heat, I'd always believed to be a work. And until this happened, there were several times. There was one point I went into a meeting. We all went into a meeting with Bill Banks. Was it Banks?
I was Bill Bush. Right, yeah. One of the two.
Yeah, and he was very open, and we talked very openly. I had secretly recorded I had a mini cassette recorder in my pocket in case something was said that could be used later. So I still have that somewhere in my house. But this then started like a 2-3 day period of where like a lot of weird stuff was happening. Like we would get to the building and be told that our match had been canceled or taken off for one of our matches. And Monday night we had a pay-per-view Sunday in Cincinnati. We were in Columbus, Ohio for television on Monday. We all got there, had the meeting with Bill. We were all down in catering at different points, and here comes security, a lot of security walking in. And I see one of them walk over to Chris Benoit, and a couple of them walk over to Dean, and some over to Perry. And I look up, and here comes a couple of them walking over to me. So, we get kicked out of the building, and back at the hotel that night, we were all packing our stuff up to fly home. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't know at that point that the other guys had threatened their resignations. I never did. I wasn't going to. And so this turned into like a month-long game of brinksmanship, right? Like Diana Myers, the lead counsel. What this basically boiled down to was she was pissed off that wrestlers were making more than her because she saw us as Cro-Magnon Neanderthals. And how dare we be allowed to make more money than her? And I said to her one time, well, you want to put a pair of boots on and tights, I'm sure you can go out there and give it a try if you want to make more money. There's a lot of weird stuff, like I said earlier, from and this was just one more of the offshoots of that. And that night at the hotel at the airport, we're all getting ready to go to the airport for our flights home. And we made a pact. I think Conan was there. I think Ray was there. Dean, Chris, Barry, me. There were like 7 or 8 of us sitting around the table. We drank a couple bottles of Beaujolais wine because that's what Chris liked, Benoit. And we all promised to stick together, that anything one of us hears will share with the others. And this is when the infamous Connecticut Ramada call comes into me from Vince Russo. So I was not hearing all the stuff. I had gotten part of the stuff where we all promised to stick together. And then these guys had gone rogue behind my back, which, again, I don't fault them. Each one of us has to look out for our best interest. But with Dean, it's although we both put it behind us, there's still a little bit of, why there, because all I'd asked when I spoke to Dean that day, I said, just give me a heads up. My wife was finally, after 8 years of infertility treatments, pregnant, and he was well aware of the emotional stress that was involved with that. And I said, just give me a heads up. I got a bun in the oven. I got a wife. I got a house to take care of here. So just let me cover my ass. And he swore to me, and then which I found out about 10 minutes later, or an hour and 10 minutes later, that swear was not valid. Just things like that. But there were a lot of oddities like that going on at the time. And I think this sort of covered several questions we've had so far, like the new blood and the revolution and this passing of the torch that never happened. In that, you could see like the revolution and the new blood was sort of decapitated in one move. And again, an attempt to try to keep that power with the guys that were now clearly getting over the hill. So when everybody talks about the death of WCW, there are 1,000 ingredients that went into that. And like this was certainly one of those things. All these things were doing the same thing, killing the company a little bit by death of 1,000 cuts. And it was just a matter of time before the body hit the floor.